We coming after you, nigga. And then Sherry had to like hold him. It was Hulk Hogan who said, don't fire him. He made a mistake. He got caught up in emotion. You can't teach that kind of passion. So Booker T, head in hand in the locker room, freaked out, not knowing what the heck was going to happen. It was Hulk Hogan who put his arm around him and said, listen, look, man, it happens. You know what? And sometimes I feel like a nigga. Granted, I don't like white people using that word. But if you're going to stick your neck out for somebody, that's not something that suspected white supremacists do. That's one. Fact number two, it was Hulk Hogan who told Kamala, and he did not have to tell Kamala, and if you research, you will find out everything that I'm saying is true. He told Kamala, look, man, I don't know what they're paying you, but they're cutting me a massive check, so you better go get yours right the hell now. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, big blackety black, not to be, he's not like The Rock, who can go play Hercules because he has quote-unquote good hair, whatever the hell that is, and the right complexion. Kamala. And he looked out. He was looking out for him. Aside from that, Patrick Clark has gone on record and saying that Hulk Hogan was giving this man tips as to how to perform a move in the ring. Now, as a father, I have two daughters. One is 17 years old. The other one is 18 months old. Okay, so I have two different spectrums of life I'm dealing with. With my 17-year-old daughter, my daughter she's like her mother. She's model-esque. She's a beautiful girl. She's very tall, though. And, guys like her. And I got to tell you, if I knew somebody was trying to just screw my daughter physically and financially for who she was and who she was, if you understand what I mean when I say that. Who she was meaning because she's a tall, good-looking girl, and who she was because she's Hulk Hogan's fucking daughter. And instead of really doing what was happening, which was to produce records that Hulk was paying thousands of dollars to get produced, and you're just doing this to just try and get on and get over, yeah, I'd have called him a fucking nigger too. Perspective is everything. But of course we got all up in our feelings and didn't look at it. That's not to say that he wasn't wrong for saying that language, but as a father, I've said worse. As a black man, you've said worse. You know what I'm saying? And I am not in any way, shape, or form caping for Hulk Hogan, but I deal in facts. I don't deal in emotions.
Alright. So let's go to, we know you're a former pro wrestler, so we want to talk about your background as, I heard you was producer of Rickey Smiley show, worked for Wendy Williams, DJ Clue. So yeah, how did you get involved with all this, like your background?
Wow, okay. I actually, I'm what's called a polymath, which is a special kind of, I don't like the word because it makes me sound like Kanye, but genius. I learn very quickly and I don't forget much. And so I was getting really, really bored in school because they wouldn't skip me. They wouldn't let me take the test. They wouldn't do anything. So long story short, I just went on strike because they would have me come into school, come in class, and the teachers were so fucking lazy. They would make me, they had like give a test, and then you have a copy of that test with all the answers in it. I fill out all the answers for the teachers, and then they go out and give the test to the rest of the kids. I wasn't being challenged. So I said, fuck it, I'm not doing this homework no more. Don't give me no more tests. It was like I'm running and I'm racing toddlers mentally. I'm at an elementary school in the hood, and they just won't skip me. They don't know, not at all. Your mom's a single mom. Yeah, we know what your older brother is. Your older brother's a dumb athlete. Now, my brother was never dumb, but he was a massive athlete, and grades wasn't his thing. He did them. He's smart. My brother's got 2 degrees, and he's a cop. But that's how they think about us. So I was like, not going to do it. So my mother, being a teacher, sided with the teachers, and she said, oh, well, there are just things in this life that you have to do that you're not going to like. Valuable lesson. Here's the jacked up part. My mother took everything out of my room. I mean, everything. No phone, no TV, no radio, stuff that I could have fun with. She took all that out, So my brother was working, and he felt so sorry for me because he knew that what I was doing was a principled thing. And he gave me a radio and a phone. He snuck it in, unbeknownst to my mom. And so I turned on the radio, and because I don't forget much, at the time, this is the late 1980s, you could take the dial of the radio and turn it all the way to the left, and the actual, a few of the TV stations were running on a radio signal, so I could listen, and because I didn't have a clock on the wall, didn't know what time it was, and so I'm trying to find, like, who's the boss or whatever the hell the show was, or Different Strokes or something, don't remember. And I wound up falling onto the station that was geared towards kids. I called that radio station. 2 days later, the producer calls, asked to speak to the mother of David Anderson. My mother answers the phone, and she's like, "Yeah, hello." No, my son doesn't have a phone or a radio. So after the swelling in my ass went down, I wound up working on the show called Kids Corner. That led to me doing a TV show called Candid Kids Club, which was syndicated on CBS right before the Saturday morning cartoons came off. And then I went to college. And in college, there was a radio station where you're doing jazz and stuff like that. And then they cut that out and said, oh, the students don't need this. Fuck these kids who are paying $10,000 a year. We're just going to play classical music and we'll play jazz at night. So we'll take the older jocks and we'll put them on at night. We'll put some white jocks during the day on to do some classical music. And then the kids, we'll just fuck them. That's why. So I went and petitioned the president of Temple University for some money and a space to start a radio station so that the students who were actually majoring in radio could learn something. And to this day, WHIP Radio is a functioning, fully formed radio station here in Philadelphia. So because I decided to do something, people are able to learn. Now, getting to your point, which was how did I get with Clue and all of that. So I'm out in the world. I mean, I'm North Carolina, South Carolina. I wind up in Central Texas. I'm in Austin, Texas. And I get a call one day. It was like, yeah, I'm looking for Taz. I'm like, yeah. Dude's like, yo, I like your production skills. I know what you're capable of doing. I knew that you worked with Wendy Williams in Philadelphia a few years back. We have this show, and we really can't get it to where it needs to be production-wise. It's with a DJ who has some experience, but he's more of a mixtape guy. And I'm like, okay, well, who is it? And he says, well, it's DJ Clue. I'm like, bet. So Clue send me, like the mixes and his little Clue, Illuminati, all those kind of drops and identifications. I would put together the show. Yeah, so I would put together the show, and then we wound up getting into a bunch of markets, and that was this weekend show. And that came after the guy who had hired me had negotiated them off of Hot 97 and on the Power 105. Now, fast forward about a year later, Clue show is over with. Clue is just busy doing Clue stuff. I'm in Austin, and I'm getting ready to leave Dallas because they sell my radio station. And radio is like sports in that they can buy your contract, you can get bought by somebody else can sell you, whatever the case may be. And so I started writing on the wall, and I signed a deal with a radio station called K104. K104 is famous for making just superstar radio personalities. Tom Joyner, Rick Party, there were a lot of people who were there. And all these folks, it was like the last place where people were making $1 million contracts without being in syndication. So I thought I was on my way. I get there, I'm there about 6 or 7 months. Me and the program director had a falling out. I'm fired. Tells me I'm inconsistent. The truth of the matter is he wanted to go off to LA and shoot his local video show. And I was busting his ass. Like, I took over his show, and cats were looking for me when he came back. Sometimes, like Diddy once said, there can't be two kings in the jungle. Mm-hmm. So I got fired, and I called Doug Banks. God rest his soul. He just died not too long. I called Doug Banks, and Doug Banks was like, yo, go over to Radio 1, see what they got in production. So I go over there, I meet with the program director. He was like, look, you got morning show experience. I know what you did over there. We're trying to beat these guys. I know you can help. So I'll put you in production, and then I'll help you help the morning show. And I was like, okay, cool. I know how to do production. I know exactly what that morning show was doing because I was writing for that morning show. I was creating bits. So next thing you know, the producer of Rickey's show was off doing God only knows. And he wasn't really handling the gig. And I came in there. I was handling the gig. And I met Rickey in the year 2000, and he paid me $100 out of pocket to open up for him in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So he didn't remember me, but I did. I had a picture of that. And then he was seeing what I was doing, and then after a while, it was just a no-brainer. So that's how I got with Rickey. We put the show in the syndication, moved on to 30 markets. Things happened. I bounced out, came home to Philly, and that's that. So that's the whole.
So how did you get with Wendy Williams?
Huh?
Wendy Williams.
Wendy Williams came along. I was still in college. I was at Radio 1. Radio 1 decided to get rid of the morning show I was producing and go for a syndicated show that they already owned. So they put Russ Power in syndication. And Philadelphia was an ideal market, at least they thought so. So we did the morning show that day, and then that afternoon, I was across the street. At that particular period, they had a morning show called Carter and Sanborn, and Brian Carter, God rest his soul, was a mentor of mine. And so I was just there, just trying to, get in where I fit in. And what wound up happening was they just blew everybody out. They brought in Wendy Williams, who was a part of that show towards the end. Then they blew Carter and Sanborn out. The guy that I come across the street with wound up being with Wendy, and as part of his deal, he got me. So I was producing what was called the Dealey and Wendy show. And that's, how that happened. And it got to a point where, I don't know if you can figure this out, but even at the ripe old age of almost 40, I'm still a very ambitious guy. Shave 20 years off of me, and imagine how hungry I am. So Wendy said to me, in front of Dee, her co-host at the time, said, "Listen, none of these cats are going anywhere." She was like, I went down to the Virgin Islands, was making $25 a week. She was like, "If you want to get anywhere, you're going to have to leave." And I'm like, "What the hell am I leave for? I'm not leaving." So basically, I got lovingly fired the same way that Roberta Flack lovingly fired Luther Vandross. And she said, "The next time I see you, you're going to be somebody." And the next time Wendy saw me, she was coming in to my studio to promote her TV show when I was producing Rickey Smiley.
Yeah, say that again, because it started lagging a little bit. What you say?
I said, Wendy said that the next time I would see her, I was going to be somebody. And the next time I saw Wendy, she was walking into my studio when I was producing Rickey Smiley in 30 markets.
Yeah, so. I watched the interview, and they were saying like she's really like she knows her stuff, like kind of like a genius. So was that her, or was it you working for her?
I can't take away anything from Wendy. Wendy's creativity is amazing. Wendy's understanding of the business is phenomenal. Wendy saw things for herself that most people don't see for themselves. I'm not going to sit up here. Wendy, she is so brilliant. It's scary, but sometimes you can have people around you that can kind of diminish your brilliance. And I will say her genius is her own. I was just happy to have experienced it.
And then you mentioned some of your influences and your mentors. So who are some of your mentors, and who are some people you study?
Wow, good question. Generally, I study people who have impacted the world in a major way. I study Jesus Christ. And I know that's kind of a typical thing to say, but not in a Lord and Savior kind of way, but more in the way to influence people. You got to look at how brilliant you have to be to allow yourself to follow somebody who's telling you that what you've been doing all this time ain't exactly the way it should be done. And that is amazing to me. I look at people like Master P, who just saw a different way. This man took $10,000, regardless of whether he got it from an inheritance or something else, and basically created a blueprint that has not and will never, ever happen again. I look at people like Uncle Luke, who was the only person who had a record company and did not sell out. Luke Records was Luke Records until Luke Records was no more. Barry Gordy can't say that. Puff Daddy can't say that. Dr. Dre can't say that. Only Luther Campbell. And what Luke did, people try to play Luke like, oh, well, they were arresting